The federal government says it plans to increase its borrowing despite a significant 40.5% surge in revenue for the first 8 months of 2025. Welcome to Business Point, where we extract the Nigerian economy and the government policies. I am Kike Lomo Okere. The boost in revenue has largely been driven by substantial gain in non-oil revenue collection based on the figures released by the presidency. Nigerian fiscal performance from January to August 2025 saw a total collection reach a record of 20.59 trillion naira, surpassing the 14.6 trillion naira collected during the same period in 2024. It also noted that non-oil revenue now accounted for 75% of the total collection. However, despite this positive development, Nigeria still faces substantial funding gap in crucial sectors such as infrastructure with low capital spending. Low contractors under the All Indigenous Contractors Association of Nigeria recently staged a protest at the headquarters of the Ministry of Finance in Abuja to demand payment for capital projects executed in 2024 amounting to 4 trillion naira. To address this funding gap, the government plans to borrow local and domestically despite an earlier claim by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja that had met its revenue target for 2025 ahead of schedule and will no longer rely on borrowing to fund budget. The World Bank is expected to approve loan totaling $1.75 billion before the end of the year to support key development projects in Nigeria. According to the official data obtained from the bank's official website, these loans will finance several key initiatives, including projects in agriculture, health, and digital infrastructure. One of the major projects set to benefit from the financial backing is the Nigerian Sustainable Agricultural Value Chain for Growth, which will receive $500 million. This initiative is aimed at improving agricultural productivity and integrating value chain to support rural development and economic diversification. The project is currently in concept review phase, with approval expected on December 11, 2025. And another project, the Building Resilient Digital Infrastructure for Growth, which has a commitment of $500 million aimed to enhance Nigerian digital infrastructure and foster economic growth, particularly in the technology sector. The project is currently in the beginning negotiation phase, with approval scheduled for October 31, 2025. Similarly, the Health Security Program in Western and Central Africa, Nigeria Phase 2, will receive $250 million to strengthen Nigeria's health system and improve the country's preparedness for health emergencies. This project is also in the beginning negotiation phase, with approval expected by September 30, 2025. Lastly, the Fostering Inclusive Finance for MSMEs in Nigerian project, which aims to improve access to finance for small and medium-sized enterprises, will be allocated $500 million. This project in this concept review phase, with approval set for December 18, 2025. Collectively, these projects comprise the $1.75 billion in loan expected to be approved official website. The approval covering the period from June 2023 to August 2025. $0.95 billion from the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development and $6.50 billion from the International Development Association. The International Bank for Reconstruction and Development provides loan on commercial or near commercial terms to middle income and credit-worthy low-income countries, while the International Development Associations offer highly concessional loan and grants toward poorest nation. Economists warn that the rising loan pipeline, while potential beneficial for the long-term development, could deepen fiscal pressure if not matched with stronger domestic revenue mobilization and prudent expenditure management. The Central Bank of Nigeria has formally announced the establishment of a dedicated compliance department, marking a significant step in its ongoing efforts to enhance regulatory effectiveness and streamline supervisory responsibilities. According to a circular signed by Olubunmi Ayodele Oni, the new department was created in the first quarter of 2025 with a full operational responsibility commencing in the second quarter of 2025. The move is part of the broader structural reform aimed at consolidating oversight functions, clarifying institutional role, and ensuring focused supervision of non-prudential and emerging risk. The compliance department now oversees the following key areas: financial crime supervision, which including anti-money laundering, counter-financing of terrorism, counter-proliferation finance, and sanction compliance; market conduct supervision, which covers disclosure practice, complaint management, and advertising standards; enterprise security supervision includes cyber security, data protection, and third-party risk management; corporate governance and ESG supervision focus on board effectiveness and environmental, social, and governance oversight. The CBN has directed all regulated financial institutions to channel future reports, correspondence, and inquiries related to this area to the Director of the Compliance Department via established communication protocol. Institutions will receive further guidelines on designated points of contact and submission procedures directly from the department. The establishment of the Compliance Department is a strategic move to embed regulatory discipline and ensure robust oversight of the overall prudential risk. The CBN reaffirmed its commitment to working collaboratively with financial institutions to ensure a smooth transition and uphold the highest standards of regulatory compliance. It could be recalled that the CBN recently issued a directive mandating all participants in the country's payment ecosystem to complete migration to the ISO 20022 messaging standard and implement mandatory geotagging of payment terminals by October 31, 2025. In a circular published on its official website, the Apex Bank reminded deposit money banks, microfinance, mobile money operators, switching and processing companies, payment terminal service providers, payment solution service providers, super agents, and other licensed operators that ISO 20022 is now global for payment messaging. Investors' confidence after a sharp decline in 2024. Capital importation data from the National Bureau of Statistics reveals that the sector recorded $22.13 million in inflow in 2023 before declining to $1.29 million in 2024. Yet it recovered modestly in the first quarter of 2025 with $2.97 million. Stakeholders says renewed investment in the sector reflected the broader economic condition of the country. President of the Experiential Marketer Association of Nigeria, Tolulope Medebe, explained that recovery points to renewed interest in the industry. Official data shows that while foreign inflow into the market fell sharply in 2024 to just $1.29 million, the first quarter of 2025 recorded a modest rebound to $2.97 million. Cumulatively, the industry has attracted $26.39 million since 2023. The government's recent efforts to stabilize policy and foreign exchange are beginning to reassure investors' brand, are also redoubling down on consumers' engagement in a recovering economy, and Nigeria's fast-growing digital ecosystem remain too big an opportunity for global players to ignore. Medembe stressed that Nigeria must address policy unpredictability, regulatory bottlenecks, and its high-risk market perception to attract more foreign investments. The Electricity Regulatory Commission says plans are ongoing to implement a net metering arrangement that will enable exports to exercise power into national grid for commercial value. The Commission says the value of solar panel imported into Nigeria in the first quarter of 2025 was 125.3 billion naira, saying this reflects the increased adoption of renewable energy. In a statement, NEC says Nigeria's solar energy capacity has experienced significant growth in recent years, with imported panels value at $200 million. It added that in 2024, Nigeria added 63.5 megawatts of solar capacity, bringing the total capacity to 385.7 megawatts, further accelerating the shift towards decentralized energy solution. With this, NEC says some stakeholders approach it with requests to enable the export of excess power to the grid for commercial use. The Commission says it has developed draft regulation on the net billing. Given this expansion, stakeholders have approached the Commission with requests to explore the possibility of implementing a net metering arrangement, enabling the export of excess power back into the grid for commercial value. The Commission is inviting the general public to provide comment on the draft net billing regulation, which can be accessed on its website. Submission can be made until September 26, 2025. Let's take a quick short break. We will be right back. Don't go away. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, it's Business Point on Global Television, where we x-ray the Nigerian economy and the government policies. The federal government has made tax identification compulsory for people getting involved in banking and allied services in the country. Consequently, all taxable Nigerians are to obtain a taxpayer identification when the new Tax Act come into force in January 2026. The tax ID is contained in the provision of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025, Part 2, Section 4 of the legislation, which has recently signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Section 6(1) of the Act also requires non-resident persons who supply taxable goods and services to any person in Nigeria to obtain tax ID, as they shall be obligated to pay tax in Nigeria. Section 7(3) empowers the relevant tax authority to issue tax ID to a person who should have applied for an ID but failed to do so. The relevant tax authority is also empowered to refuse to issue a tax ID to an applicant based on information available to it. In such a case, the authority shall inform the applicant of its decision with 5 working days. Section 8(1)(c) makes tax ID a condition for entering into contracts with the federal and state government. Section 8(2) makes tax ID mandatory for any person to operate a bank account or get involved in insurance, stock, or allied services in the country. Once the Act comes into force from January 1, 2026, the Act, however, provides an allowance to suspend or deregister the tax ID if the holder ceases to undertake trade or businesses, either temporarily or permanently. Sector 10(1) provides where a taxable person temporarily ceases to carry on trade or business in Nigeria, the taxable person shall notify the relevant tax authority of its intention to suspend its registration for tax purposes within 30 days of such temporary of trade or business. The tax ID is contained in the provision of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025, Part 2, Section 4 of the legislation, which has recently signed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of the Act also require non-resident person who supply goods and services to any person in Nigeria to obtain tax ID, and they shall be obligated to pay tax in Nigeria. Section 7(3) empowers the relevant tax authority to issue ID to persons who should have applied for ID but failed to do so. The relevant tax authority is also empowered to refuse to issue tax ID to an applicant based on information available to it. In such case, the authority shall inform the applicant of its decision within 5 working days. Let's take a quick short break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Stay with us. Technology to 21% of gross domestic by 2027 hinges on creating a predictable business environment and giving operators flexibility to adjust pricing in line with the inflation. Carl Toriola, MTN Nigerian Chief Executive Officer, says the ICT sector growth potential is unquestionable, but the speed of progress will depend largely on how government addresses regulatory certainty. capital attraction and tariff flexibility. The federal government is banking on the Nigerian's top 3 technology companies, which now dominates the Nigerian stock market, to propel ICT's GDP share from 17.68% recorded in 2024 to 21% by 2027. Announcing the target at the inaugural GTech Nigerian 2025 in Lagos, Bosun Tijani, Minister of Communication, Innovation and Digital Economy, described ICT as Nigeria's new economic backbone. He added that ICT has already surpassed oil in terms of economic contribution, reshaping Nigeria's growth trajectory, stressing that technology must not only boost GDP but also deliver inclusive prosperity under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. All right, this is where we'll call it a wrap on Business Point today. Join me again on Monday on Global Television, channel 365 on DSTV and 276 on StarTime. To stay connected, kindly follow us on all our social media platforms at Global TV NG. Till I come your way again, I am Kike Lomo Okeri. I celebrate you all.